Hello friends, my name is Ryan. I'm going to tell you a story named The Séance, Inviting Unwanted Guests, which is a very amazing story full of twists. So, let's start. It was a rainy night, one of those nights where the wind howled like a hungry wolf and the clouds hung low in the sky, blocking out the moon. There was a chill in the air, even inside the warm, cozy room of the old house on Willow Lane. The house was ancient, with creaky wooden floors that whispered secrets to anyone who listened closely enough. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. For friends, all gathered for what seemed like an innocent evening, were sitting around a table. But little did they know that this night would change their lives forever. "Are we sure about this?" Mark asked, his voice shaky. He had never been a fan of the supernatural, and the thought of dabbling in something he didn't understand made him uncomfortable. But his friends were eager. They had all heard the stories about the old house on Willow Lane. Everyone in town had, but no one dared to go inside. It had been abandoned for years, but whispers of strange happenings had circulated, voices from the walls, flickering lights, and even sightings of a figure in the window, but only when no one was supposed to be there. "Mark, come on," Sarah said, laughing lightly. "It's just a séance. Nothing to be afraid of. We're all in this together." Mark reluctantly agreed, his curiosity getting the better of him, though he still couldn't shake the unease in his chest. He wasn't the only one. Emma, the quiet one of the group, was fiddling with her fingers, glancing nervously at the Ouija board set out before them. And then there was David, who looked too eager for comfort. He had always been fascinated by the paranormal. His eyes sparkled with excitement, as if this was the greatest adventure of his life. The room fell silent as David cleared his throat. "Okay, everyone, let's begin. We have to make sure we follow the rules carefully. The spirits don't take kindly to those who disrespect them." His voice took on a serious tone, but there was a hint of thrill behind it. "We're here to communicate, not disturb. Got it?" Everyone nodded, but their faces betrayed the nervous tension in the air. Sarah placed her fingers lightly on the planchette. The others did the same. David lit a candle, the flame flickering ominously in the dim room. The table was heavy with anticipation. "Spirits of the unknown, we come with respect," David said, his voice soft and deliberate. "We seek to communicate. If you are present, give us a sign." For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. Then, slowly, the planchette moved. At first, it was subtle, just a tiny shift, almost like a breeze had passed over it. But then it slid across the board, first hovering over the letters H and E, then gliding toward L. A chill ran down Mark's spine as he watched the planchette move with unnatural precision. "Hello," it spelled. "Okay, that's creepy," Mark muttered under his breath, but Sarah smiled, leaning in closer. "See? I told you." David was still, his eyes locked on the planchette. "Is anyone here with us?" he asked, almost too eagerly. The planchette slid quickly across the board, stopping at Y, then E, spelling out yes. The room seemed to grow colder, the fire in the hearth barely offering any warmth. The candle flickered again, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Mark looked around nervously, his eyes darting between his friends. Emma, who had been silent until now, spoke up in a quiet voice. "What if we're talking to something we're not meant to?" But before anyone could answer, the planchette moved again, more rapidly this time. It spelled out one word, help. The tension in the room thickened, and for the first time, Sarah seemed uncertain. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The planchette jerked to life, spelling out Lucy. "Who is Lucy?" Mark asked, his voice strained, as if he already knew that asking wouldn't lead to anything good. David leaned in closer, his voice almost a whisper. "What do you want, Lucy?" The planchette moved once more, the letters spelling out, to be found. A deafening silence filled the room. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air felt heavier, as if something was pressing down on them all. Emma's hand trembled against the board, and Mark instinctively pulled away from it. "What does that mean?" Sarah asked, her voice sharp now, tinged with fear. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the house, as if something had fallen upstairs. Everyone jumped, and the candle flickered violently. The planchette moved again, but this time, it was fast, almost violent in its movement. The words it spelled out sent chills through their bodies. "Leave now." David's eyes widened, his expression unreadable. "We should stop." "We shouldn't have done this," he muttered, but there was something in his voice, something that hinted at more than just fear. It was almost fascination. But it was too late. The room grew colder, the shadows deepening, as if the house itself were alive, aware of their presence. Then, without warning, the candle went out, plunging them into darkness. A cold breeze swept through the room, carrying with it an unearthly whisper. The voice seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, low and mournful. "You invited me." The sound of footsteps echoed through the house, though no one moved. It sounded as though someone was walking, but there was no one there. The door to the room slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic spread through the group. Mark pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. "What is happening?" he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. Emma, her face pale, pointed toward the window. The glass had fogged over, but something was visible, shadows, moving against the mist. They could see a figure standing there, its outline shifting and distorted. It didn't belong to any of them. A low voice echoed through the room again. "You wanted to talk to the dead. Now, you'll wish you hadn't." The figure in the window moved closer, and suddenly, the glass shattered. The wind howled through the room, and the figure stepped inside, but it wasn't human. It was a spirit, translucent and twisted, its eyes hollow, its mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. The air seemed to freeze around them as the entity reached out toward them. And in that moment, they understood the terrible truth: they had invited something into their lives, something far darker than they had ever anticipated. The friends tried to run, but the house seemed to hold them in place, the walls closing in around them. The figure grew closer, its whispers growing louder, until they felt as if their very souls were being pulled toward it. In the end, only one thing remained: the quiet of the house, now empty. The candle was extinguished, the wind had settled, and the whispers had stopped. But something lingered in the air. A warning. And now, my friends, as you sit in the comfort of your homes, I must ask you, what will happen if you too seek out the unknown? Will you be brave enough to confront the spirits, or will you too become their next unwitting guests? If you're curious, you may find yourself wondering, what happens next? And if you want more stories like this, filled with twists, suspense, and the unknown, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay safe, and remember, some invitations should never be sent.